today. And for those that may not know who Roy is, Roy Cleeves is, first, he's an incredible human being that I've had the privilege of knowing for many, many years and understands me. And he's one of the most professional, honest, ethical salesmen that I've ever met in my life. So if you ever even just want to learn a little bit, you've got to follow us or follow Roy. But one of the things that I'm really excited about to let everybody know, and you'll start to hear, is Roy is a author. And within a very short period of time, Roy will have his book published, referred to as the Accidental Real Estate Millionaire. So for those that I might know, is it itchy? Sorry about that. But Roy, first of all, welcome. And I'm so happy that you're here. And I'm really happy that we have the opportunity to kind of share online. And just a lot of people are starting to, who is Roy? And I think the Accidental Real Estate Millionaire. So why the Accidental Real Estate Millionaire?
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate being here. And when we talked about, what a book would be and what I could write about, when we thought about my life, I thought about all the accidental chances in life that brought me to become a millionaire. And it made me want to write about becoming an accidental millionaire. And of course, as people read my book, they'll find out that some of it is accidental, some of it is purposeful. And that's the reality usually for everyone's life. However, by following some of the basic things that I believe in, people could find themselves in the same situation. And what I mean by that is having an open mind, saying yes to possibilities that come your way instead of thinking of all the roadblocks and all the reasons that it cannot work. Those are some of the things. So a lot of it is mindset, and having the right mindset helps you to be open to receive when the universe is trying to send you some money.
Yes. Well, thank you for that little comment. The universe is trying to. So let me ask you this, and for those that are watching us, Roy, I know that you've had a journey. I mean, we're all on this earth, to learn a few things and go through and have the journey. But when you think about the word faith and belief, what do those two words mean to you?
Well, I think it's very important. I am a believer. I'm a believer that there's a higher power, and that's different for different people. And that's why I kind of say it in that way. And, I believe that when you put things out there, the universe will deliver. And I believe all things happen for a reason. And even though I've gone through some rough times, without having gone through those rough times, I know that I wouldn't have been prepared to receive the better time that was coming. So that's kind of my faith and my belief that no matter how bad something might seem right now, I like to say this too shall pass, and there's a better time coming ahead.
Okay. I like this too shall pass. My mother used to say that, and this too shall pass.
Yeah,
so,
and it always does.
There you go. And I mean, Roy, we've known each other for a long time. And, and sometimes when, people are, okay, they want to be able to, they want something. They really, really, oh my gosh. What advice would you have? Especially there's a lot of realtors out there. There's a lot of people out there where they might, do I invest in real estate? What do I do? Or I have this business. So what kind of feedback would you share or advice would you share to people who are, they're a little bit more intense?
I would say share your goals with other people. It is amazing how other people will help you reach your goals. And it reminds me of my own story, one of my stories. And that was simply one of my goals was always to invest in real estate in Florida. And I was taking my family down to Florida every year for a vacation during the winter time for about 6 years in a row. And I keep seeing the prices and the kind of property I wanted to buy, like a house, I knew would be somewhere around 300,000 US.
Okay.
And I was working towards it. I was saving towards it. I would tell people this is my goal. And what would happen is suddenly in 2007, they had the change in the market in the States, and followed by basically a housing market crash in 2008. And I saw prices coming down and coming down, and wow, the prices got so good. It got down to the point where I could buy a house for $80,000 for a bungalow, and the dollar was at par. And I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. It's time to buy now. However, I'm still trying to save up 80,000 because I hadn't figured out how to mortgage it. So, putting it out there to all my friends and the people I work with. Well, one of them was my mortgage broker, Jeff Reitzel. And I said to Jeff Reitzel, like, this is what I want to do. I want to buy one of these. And, the prices are now where I think it's really attractive. And he said to me, well, all you have to do is remortgage that house that you have over on West Meadow in Kitchener, which was a rental that I owned. And I was like, wow, I hadn't even thought that I could do that right now. But by putting it out there, by talking to other people about my goals, they helped me with my goals. So we did a bunch of paperwork. And honestly, I was pretty busy selling real estate and, keeping money flowing in, that I hadn't thought too much about it. And I hadn't even calculated how much money I was getting out of this refinance. Jeff kind of handled the whole thing for me. And suddenly I get a call from the lawyer's office, which was my good friend, Victor Hussein. And he calls me up and he says, Roy, I have a check here for you for $50,000. Come and get it. And I was like, whoa, I only have to come up with another 30 and I can buy this house, right? And so I did. And it's simply by putting it out there and telling everyone these are my goals. And it didn't happen overnight, right? That's the other thing. I had to be patient. I kept looking for the opportunity. And as the prices kept falling, I patiently waited until I felt this is the right time. And then I proceeded. And you do have to take action, which is another part of it, right? Because sometimes, we could get to that point. I mean, I was looking at property in a foreign country, like the United States, as much as we love them, is a foreign country. And we really know that now with COVID because they closed the borders.
Well, that's
right?
But exactly, different laws,
Yeah.
years ago.
And taxes, right? And it would have been easy to say, maybe I shouldn't do it because of taxes. I don't know what's going to happen with their market down there. All these reasons I could have said no. However, it was my overriding goal that this is what I wanted to do. And I'm so glad that I did, because actually that house that I bought, I just sold just now. I have an offer on it. It still has to close yet in about a month. But I sold that house now for 190,000 US. And now with the exchange rate being 1.4, I get another 40% on top of that, right? So that's like $270,000 that I'm getting back on a house that I paid 80,000 Canadian for back in 2009. So it's worked out really well. And of course, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to reinvest it now into some other real estate opportunities. And that's one of the things where now I'm more purposeful, right? Because being purposeful, I know that if I pull that money out of my real estate, I want to put it back into real estate.
I think just as you were saying, I get this question a lot. First, I just want to say hello to everybody that's just chimed in. And we have Roy Cleeves with us today. Roy is Roy's an incredible human being. I'm going to say that first. Number two, Roy is soon a published author, the Accidental Real Estate Millionaire. And, I'm really blessed to know Roy. I've known him for many, many years. But he's so open. He's absolutely one of the most professional salesmen I've ever known in my life. Roy, I don't know how many people do. I will ask that magic question. In the first year of real estate and the second year of real estate, how many transactions did you do? How many people did you help?
So the first full year, I did 60 transactions.
60.
And then the second full year, I did 98 transactions. And that's where I got so busy myself that I started to lose track. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need some help, right? And that's when I started to build a team, because you can only stretch yourself so far before you're not giving the level of service that you want to give to your clients. And the solution for that is to build a team around you. And so ever since 2006, I've had a real estate team, and it's really made a huge difference. We've been able to provide excellent service. And of course, it allows me to go on and do other things like the real estate investments. So I spend a little more time focusing on investments now.
Yeah. Which, I mean, and I'll, share a little bit for those that may not know. What do they say? Success leaves clues. You
They
kind of
do.
leave the cookie trail, Tom. I followed your cookie trail, Tom. So, and for those, for those that are watching, like, folks, we're all human, and there's no one person out there that, oh, that person's smarter, that person's better, that person's this, that person's that. Just as what Roy said, and you may or may not have heard, is you do have to, if you put it out there, tell people, you got to trust the universe, and you got to believe and trust. And we do. Roy, I love the term you said, stone days and diamond days.
Yes, yes.
We all
That's
have.
the way I like to talk about, the career, right?
Yeah.
There's days where things seem to be falling apart, and I call those a stone day because, it's like, wow, I'm feeling like I'm getting stoned today. They're hitting me with stone, right? Here comes another one. And then the very next day could be diamonds, where maybe that deal that fell apart yesterday, the people go and buy something else with you, and maybe it even ends up better for them and better for you. And you're like, wow, that stone just turned into a diamond. And of course, I'm a very positive person, as you know, and this career, being a real estate agent, real estate investor, we have so many more days that are diamonds that to me, it's a wonderful, one of the best careers out there.
Well, and folks, it was something always in the back of my mind, and I know we've stayed in touch over the years, and I just saw your life, and I saw just, how things grew and grew and grew, and you touch base every so often. And I knew that I had a big vision. I did a lot of stuff in the corporate world, and real estate is business. It's one of the oldest business since the instant of time, because you're dealing with people's money. But it all goes down, it still comes down, like, the trust, the relationship, the confidence, what we do. And you're one of the reasons, I mean, you're the reason I watched your team grow. And I watched you guys, and you were one of the top number referral people to go to.
Yeah.
So I kind of watched you build, and I'm like, I want to replicate you. How do we grow? So, the privilege and opportunity to be able to work together and then help other people kind of do this, whether you're coming in as an agent and you want to learn from the best, you connect with us. Or you are a buyer or a seller. If you're a seller out there and you want to get the top dollar for your home, then, like, there's things that you can do. But to be living the life that you live today, Roy, did you ever think you'd be where you are today 10 years ago?
No, I really didn't. And that's one of the things that really helps when you connect with more people. They actually help you think bigger. And that's one of the things that Keller Williams Realty has really done for me. Not only did they put on the real estate investment seminars that changed my life and got me really into active investing, they've also opened my eyes to doing more leverage, where we can do an expansion team, which you and I have in Burlington, and just thinking bigger than we think. And it's simply, a lot of times when we think about ourselves, we think, well, I can only see the horizon this far. So yeah, this is my goal, and I think I can get there. And then when I get there, I'll look a little bit farther. But the reality is, if you think bigger and you start to say, with the help of other people, because they help us think bigger, why don't you look up here, right? Look way up here. And then, you can do more than you think. And I've seen it in a few things, like both the real estate team and in real estate investing. So for my real estate team, I remember when I joined Keller Williams, I had about 1,200 square feet of office space. And I said to Jim Reitzel at the time, like, Jim, this is way more space than I need. There's only like 4 people on our team. And, I don't think I'll ever use this much space. And he said, oh no, Roy, you're going to grow your team and you're going to use all of this space. And he was totally right. By 2007, we had 12 members on the team and we were using all the space, right? And it's the same with real estate investing. Like, in my thoughts, I thought, okay, earning what I earn and the amount of money you got to put down to buy some homes, maybe I can get to the point where I can own 3 rentals, maybe 4 rentals, who knows, right? However, what I've found with the help of other people is that if you keep letting them know your goal is to do another deal, they'll help you get there. And I found by talking to different mortgage agents, they were able to come up with different options that allowed me to keep going. And I even got to the point where my goal of buying more real estate was so big that I bought 3 properties in 2016 that were going to close in 2018 that I didn't even have funding for. I had no idea how I was going to fund them, but my drive, and I just knew they were going to be worth more money because the prices in 2016 were starting to climb so fast.
Mhm.
And these were probably based on 2015 plus a small increase. Well, by 2016, prices have gone up 16%. And in 2017, they went up another 25%. So by the time we got to 2018, these properties I bought were each worth 100,000 more than I had paid for them. So it was, truly a great thing that I went ahead and purchased these properties. Now I still have to close on them, right? So I don't want to come out and ask people specifically to help me. I guess, it's one of those ego things, but I would tell all my investor friends and all my mortgage broker friends, here's my dilemma. I have these 3 properties coming up and I don't know how I'm going to fund them. Well, sure enough, one of my great friends and great investors said to me, Roy, if you need some money, I'll be able to give you, loan you some money. You're going to pay, of course. Yes, of course I'll pay. But I will loan you some money so you can close on those properties. And the beauty of that is when you close on a property that you bought at, let's just use round numbers of 300,000 and it's now worth 400,000, you can then refinance it. So now they're going to give me money based on the 400,000, say at 80%. So now they're going to give me 320,000 and I only paid 300,000 for it. So now it's costing me no money for those properties, provided I get that mortgage, right? So when you can set things up like that with the help of some friends, it really boosts the number of properties that you can own.
That's and just wanted to take a quick moment to say hello to everybody that's just joined us. We've had a few more people that have just joined. This is Roy Cleeves, and Roy Cleeves, soon to be published author, the Accidental Real Estate Millionaire. Roy's been in the real estate industry for quite a few years. I've known Roy for over 25, 26 years. A lot of people are like, is that your husband? No, Roy's like my brother. So yeah. And so we've got a long history, but just Roy, for everybody that's watching, he's the number one reason. I mean, I've had kind of real estate in the back of my mind, but he is the reason. But it was Roy and my husband that finally kind of gave me the last little push, if you will. But I'll tell you, the one reason is he is one of the most professional salesmen, one of the most ethical, and they were in the top tier for the top referrals for all of Ontario. Like Roy would get referral after referral. And I saw what Roy was doing and I got to replicate you. Like, how can we take what you do and build you outside another? Because it is business. I mean, real estate is a business to consumer, but we're working with people with one of their most expensive assets they've ever had. And it's an emotional decision.
It's a wonderful career because you think of it, we come into people's lives, we help them with probably the biggest financial decision of their life, unless they're, doing something big in business. But otherwise, it's a critical, big life decision. And not only is it money-wise a huge decision, it is also a huge decision emotionally often. Sometimes it can be an estate sale where, that house was in the family for years and years, and there's a lot of emotions around it. And we have the professionalism to help the people get through that transition. I remember helping one of my clients where they called me up and they said, well, we have to sell my mother's house. She passed away. I said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I'd be happy to help you. How long ago did she pass away? She passed away a year ago. They were so emotional that they could not deal with the house for a whole year. So for a whole year, they would just go, they still paid all the bills, of course, but they would go past, mow the grass, and they would go over and, sort through the family things for an entire year before they said, okay, we can finally let go. So, you think of those kind of decisions where we're helping people. And Michelle, I know this has happened to you as well, where some of our clients end up becoming great friends, right? We start with them as clients and they want to stay in touch, and we do as much as we can. Sometimes it's difficult due to the level of activity we do. However, they become great friends and you end up on vacations with them. And you're like, wow, if I hadn't helped them with their house, we wouldn't have become the great friends that we are.
I Thank you so much for sharing. And you're so, so correct. And I think that it goes back earlier, what you were saying, like, well, and for those that are just chiming in, some people would say, oh my God, I could never be a millionaire. How do you be or how do you get there? And you help me with this, right? Where you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years.
Well, and if you think about it, particularly with real estate, because what happens is as you, and buying rentals is what I'm talking about, right? So you buy something to rent out, and what happens is you pay today's price. Generally, if you look at the MLS statistics over any 50-year period, it's going to average at least 4% per year growth. So you know you're going to have growth over an extended period of time. And every payment that that tenant makes pays down your mortgage. So you're growing your equity every single month. And, yesterday was July the 1st. And I remember smiling and laughing with my son, Skylar, who's my property manager, and saying, what a wonderful day it is. Not only is it Canada's birthday, but it's the first of the month. And while I've been sitting here in the backyard, you've emailed me 10 e-transfers for our tenants that are paying rent, and my bank account is going. Of course, then the mortgages come out and it goes. However, you're gaining that difference, and over time, it compounds because of the appreciation of the property, right? It continues to go up, and we've seen that house values have in the last 10 years pretty much doubled, which is very fast. Because you're able to double your equity. And if you continue to buy more assets, and it's really clearly defined in that the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right, by Robert Kiyosaki, you buy the assets earn you money, and they continue to grow in value over time. You naturally will become a millionaire quicker than you think. And if you look at your net worth just once a month to kind of say, okay, where are we at? And you take a reevaluation of, what you've earned, what you've paid off, deduct all your liabilities, that leaves your net worth, and you'll find it's growing. And then pretty soon, one day you'll go, wow, I am now a millionaire. And you might not feel it right away because it's on paper, right? Because it's tied up in those assets. However, when you want that money or you need that money, whether it's for retirement or a vacation or whatever, you access it by either, refinancing the properties or selling them. And of course, I always recommend refinance it. Keep as many as you can. And the reason being is because when you refinance, you get usually up to 80% of your equity out that you would get the same as you sold. So you're not getting 100%. However, when you sell, you're not getting 100% because you got to pay taxes. When you refinance, you're getting that money with no taxes. And you're keeping the goose that is laying the golden egg for you. So to me, that's the way to go. And, I have two boys, Michelle, as you know, and I've told them, listen, all these houses that we have now, all these rental properties, they're yours when mom and dad pass away. And don't sell them unless you have to, because it's better to refinance them, use that money that you need, but keep the property that's going to continue to produce results for you.
Thank you immensely, Roy. Just wanted to say hello to Wahid and Mike that just joined, and Patricia. We have Roy Cleeves with us, who is the Accidental Real Estate Millionaire, and just a wealth of knowledge. And Roy and I've had a long history, kind of know each other, et cetera. And Roy, what you shared there before, I know in my family was my grandmother that knew it, and then they owned a number of properties, but she rented, like, way back. They were born in Kapuskasing. She rented, but she would sublet the rooms to get a little extra money. So it's I think what we sometimes think is, okay, we got to have the degree or the education, and it's not that. It's the confidence, and it's also reach out. And I've attended this, and we've run this course before, and you've done them a number of times. When you get into real estate investing, people start showing up. The right people start to showing up. I think what I learned from that is you just want to start. Like, you could start, you can let people know what your goals are, whether you are a realtor or you're an investor. And when you buy your first home, Roy, would it be fair to say that you're an investor because you just invested in yourself?
Oh yes, absolutely. And you look at people who we sell a lot of people that are, they're retiring and we're selling their retirement home. And it's not unusual for them to say, I need every dollar possible out of this house, Roy, because this is my retirement money and I only have this one house. And I often think, of course, I don't say it because it's too late for them, but what if you had bought a second house, even partway through? You'd have another one to sell, right? You would have more retirement money. And of course, you'd still want every single dollar out. We always do.
Yeah. Money, that's why
Every seller's the same that way.
Money's universal. I would tell people, because people, and then even in real estate, and you know me, where I came from that corporate background, but it doesn't matter. People are people and money is money, but we all understand money.
And it's interesting, Michelle, like some of the people, you say, why doesn't everyone do it? Why doesn't everyone want to invest in real estate? And the reason being is that some people want a simple life and they're also afraid, right? And I remember being afraid with one of my first investments. It was right after I attended the Millionaire Real Estate Investment Seminar that was put on by my office at Keller Williams. And I was all pumped up and I'm going to buy this property. So I go ahead and I buy a brand new house built by East Forest Homes in Kitchener for $255,000, which to me seemed like the world of money at the time. And this is back in 2008, I think. Anyway, I buy this property. It might have been the year before. It took a little while for it to close. And I remember thinking, okay, I have the property now. Now I have to rent it. Geez, I'm worried. Could I get a bad tenant? I hear all these stories with tenants that have been terrible. They ruin the property, or you don't get a tenant, you got to pay the mortgage, So there's all these scary financial things that come up. But the reality is that there's many options. First, you can hire a property manager that will make all of that easy for you so that it's really a hands-off investment. However, I'm a very cost-conscious person, so I wanted to do it myself, and I'm in the industry anyway. So I put an ad out, and the very first person that called me happened to be someone that I knew, trusted, and liked, and she became my tenant. And she would even invite myself and my wife, Nikki, over to see the house, and have some wine, have a drink with her every few months. And I was like, oh my gosh, this house is so nice. And she stayed there for 2 years before she begged me to buy it. And I was like, oh no, I wanted to keep this house forever. Like that was my plan. And I was so happy to have you as a tenant, but I understood her goals too, right? And eventually we said, okay, we'll sell it to you. And that's when I also used that other money that I made, because I made about $30,000 on that house. And I used that along with the $50,000 from refinancing to go ahead and buy a property in the States. So.
Okay. So a couple quick questions, because I know I hear this, and Roy, I've experienced this. We got into investing first. So we bought an investment property. We called you up right away. I was in the other industry. And then I just got the interest and itch, if you will, learned more, saw where you were. And then after a couple of years, it was like, oh my God. Okay, let's get in the industry. But we don't always sometimes, make the most educated decisions because we don't know what we don't know. So I've heard of people where, they might have had not a great tenant, or this one fell through, or I've heard really bad things about rent to owns, if you will. And us human beings, we tend to do that. We hear the negative, and then we get fear, because that's a little bit of, how we're wired. That doesn't mean that we have to give in to that fear. But can you share a little bit about what your first property looked like as an investment, the first one that you bought?
Yes, for sure. So the very first one, myself and my brother-in-law, Chris Abbott, we took a course together by Whitney Canada on how to buy real estate zero down. Mm-hmm. And we bought a triplex in Guelph, and it was 1999. So even before the year 2000. And we bought this for $200,000 or just under. And anyway, it cost us very little money. We put in, I think we had to put $5,000 down. And within about 3 months, we had all of our money back. And we were like, wow, this is pretty cool. It's like a free property. However, it wasn't the best property because truly it was only classified as a duplex. we were operating it as a triplex illegally, not really knowing what we're doing. We didn't know what we were doing for putting in tenants because, you know, I wasn't in the industry. I was in another industry, knew nothing about it. And, you know, I felt the weight of needing to pay the mortgage. So when a guy showed up with cash, I took his cash. And of course, he shows up the next minute with a U-Haul that he had around the corner. And I went, uh-oh. That wasn't good. He came a little too quick with a moving truck. Looked like he was rejected a few other places.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he was not the best tenant. And at the end of the day, he ended up having a fire on the main floor and threatening the other tenants not to call anyone because of the fact that, you know, he didn't want us to know that he had a fire. So we come over to collect the rent, and sure enough, the place is all burnt up, and we're like, oh my gosh, what have we gotten ourselves into? At the end of the day, it was a lot of work, but we got through it, and we learned so much from that. We learned that we have to properly vet the tenants. It's better to have a vacancy and have a bit of a financial loss for 1 month instead of taking the wrong tenant. So these are all the things that we learned, what we call from the School of Hard Knocks, right? Yeah. And of course, we did so much of the work ourselves back then. Myself and my brother-in-law were, after the fire, we were in there fixing the place ourselves. We're there painting it night after night, you know, cleaning it up, getting it ready to re-rent because we didn't want to pay someone else. We wanted to use those funds ourselves, right? And of course now, you know, I've had a very different tenants all the time. And when I have a tenant that's kind of hard on a house, I just send in my handyman and I say, please make it rental ready. And he'll say, Roy, you should come see how bad this is. And I'm like, no, I do not want to come see it. Please just handle it for me.
Oh, yeah.
Send me the bill. And at the end of the day, it's still a profitable year, even with their bill. And, you know, and that's an exception because, you know, as we talk about this, we talk about the fact that you hear the horror stories. You don't hear the great stories. And I can tell you probably for the last, 7, 8 years, I've had no issues. I've had excellent tenants. They pay on time all the time. Even during this COVID-19 where the tenants have all the power, all of my tenants are paying. And I'm just so happy about that. And it's because we selected quality people and quality real estate. If you own something that's, you know, a lower level type of thing and the rents are lower, you end up with a different level of tenant than you do if you have something that's going to be, say, $2,000 a month. Well, that's a fair bit. That's $24,000 a year from the people's, you know, income. So you get a little better tenant because they have to have sufficient income for that, right? And the screening of them, of course.
I know I really, well, first, just, it makes so much of a difference. I know, Roy, when you have a tenant and then, you know, they're not paying and you have to kind of go down the road of evicting, that's a whole other kind of, and yeah, I can see a lot of people getting really scared about, ooh, but like you just said, if you treat it like a business, and then the second thing too is, and I found this, you know, when you get in the industry versus you, like if you have your license or you don't have your license, when you do have it and you're in the industry and you're working it, there's so much I find that we don't know as consumers. Like we know very little
Yeah.
consumers. And then, you know, you'll have people out there where they'll try to do it their own, but they don't kind of maybe realize just how much gear shifting, how much, and it's a legal based industry as well.
Yeah.
So, but it's one of the most profitable. I mean, I still hear 90% make their net wealth in real estate.
That is the statistic. And when you think about that, it just makes sense. And it, as I said earlier, it's so simple because you have time on your side. However, I understand people that want to make their million faster because I was that way too. When I started in real estate in 2003, I remember specifically speaking with my broker, and his name was Roy Singh of Century 21 Home Realty. And he said, Roy, you got to be more patient. Like, and I was like, no, I want to make my millions like right now. And that's why, you know, we see a lot of the people that want to do fix and flip and some of those things that give you cash now. And that's okay. However, if you have some patience and you do a buy and hold strategy or a combination of it, you're going to build that wealth naturally over time because time helps you build the increase in value, the pay down on the mortgage, and the increase in rental rates. Yeah, just to give you an idea, one of the homes that I bought back in 2011 was a townhouse that was virtually zero money down, because back then you could do 5% down even on a rental, and you'd pay a CMHC fee, but they build it into your mortgage. So by this time, townhouses were $255,000, which I paid back in 2008 for a detached. Well, now I can only get a townhouse for that, right?
Yeah.
But I get a freehold townhouse for that. And at the time, with the mortgage and everything, I knew that $1,200 a month would cover like all my expenses on the property. And rents back then were about $1,250. So I'm like, well, this is okay. I'll make at least $50 a month. Well, the interesting thing is that that same property now that I paid $255 for is now worth over $500,000. It's cash flowed for me from day one. It cost me very little to put down because the builder had $7,500 rebate. And as a realtor, I received a commission for selling it to myself. So I used that as my down payment. So here I have a property that cost me next to nothing. It's gone up incredibly in value. And here's the nice part about the rent. The rent where I used to charge $1,250 a month, today is rented at $2,000 a month. And my mortgage payment actually went down because interest rates went down. So instead of my carrying cost being, $1,200 a month, it's probably realistically $1,000 a month. And I'm getting $2,000 a month now. So that property is now making me $1,000 a month cash flow. And this is the kind of thing that will help you over time to retire with cash flow, so that it can replace or be a pension for you or replace your work so that you can retire early.
This, Roy, and that was all within a 10-year span.
Yeah. And I couldn't see it at the time. I just knew it was the right thing to do. And what I've learned over time is if you keep real estate long enough, it will always go up in value. And even though Canada's had some ups and downs, and the States have even more ups and downs than we do, because we have a greater population that's interested in owning. In the States, there's a different mentality and more people are interested in renting because of their ups and downs. But because of our culture, basically, we have less of those. And over time, you're going to win with real estate.
Yeah. I did hear, and this was years ago, Roy, that Canada was still one of the most cheapest places to purchase. And right. I know we're on the global map. I know a lot of people, and we can't survive without immigration. We don't make enough babies. Tax dollars, we'd be paying, I don't know if we'd be able to own. So we have to. And a lot of what we have is, it's around the hydro grid, but we're not far. We're starting to see communities. There's newer solutions coming into place, how you can leverage land. There's a lot out there, smart communities and so forth. But that whole option of do I rent, do I buy, do I rent, do I buy? What I'm really hearing is, and I know like for me as well, because we got into it as investing, and then I hear 90% make their wealth in real estate.
And there's a shortage right now. There's a shortage of great homes available for sale. And there's also a shortage of rental property out there. When we put a property up for rent, it goes right away, sometimes ends up in multiple offers. And the cities realize and the regions realize that they need more affordable housing. So for example, in Kitchener right now, they're about to approve in 2021 the ability to do coach houses and have those on the property. And they have, specific rules about how much lot coverage you can have. But the great thing is if you take a property that you own and you add, an addition or a coach house in the back, the rent that you can get on that, you can probably build it somewhere for around $200,000. We know builders that will do that price range. And you can probably rent it in the neighborhood of about $1,800 a month. And the numbers just work. And it takes your property that, is maybe, profitable to making it much more profitable. And you're doing a good thing. You are helping the region have more rental homes and more affordable housing, and the people will come and they will rent it from you. So it's a good thing.
I think that's a wonderful thing. I know not long ago, I've had a couple people reach out in our area, and they're more from a, I'm thinking about renting this out. Do you guys do property management? The time, and they're new, right? So it's like people that have never done something before. How do they benchmark it against? You know, they can make assumptions, but until you've gone down that road, you know,
And they're so smart if they do property management, because they have to look at it as that cost is an investment instead of, purely, well, that's taken away from my profit. Because the reality is that first they get to write it off, so it's only costing them maybe half of what the true cost is. The second thing about that is when you have property management, you have a better ownership experience, because what happens is when you're doing the property management, the tenants call you. And those tenant calls are bothersome. And they call at the worst possible times. You're with your family. And I know I have about 3 tenants that know that I own the house. The rest of them don't. They call my son, who's the property manager. And those 3 that know me, they will call me. And my wife, Nikki, will go, "Are they calling again?" And when that happens, what happens is in your head, you start to think, I don't know if I want to buy another property because it means I will get more calls from tenants and more hassle. But when you have property management, you think, well, that was easy. At the end of the year, I made an extra $4,000 and the property's gone up in value. And I just talked to my property manager, once or twice a year. This is really good. Yes, let's buy another property. So you see, it affects your mindset, right?
mm,
So
that's
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 why it's
that's
good.
very, very telling right there. Because whether you like it or not, you just heard it. So and you don't really want too much to deter you. So as you say, as you get into investing, we look at it like a business. So you have it managed like a business. It's one thing to say a lot of stuff, but just put pen to paper and get it constructed and run it properly, as I would look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a couple more, one more quick question, Roy, and then I'm going to let you get on with your day. And I really, really appreciate everybody that's chimed in here. So for those that may not be aware, Roy is soon published author, The Accidental Millionaire, or The Accidental Real Estate Millionaire. Roy, in today's time right now, we're dealing with COVID. And we're aware the market's moving. We're aware of that. There was a shortage
Yeah.
of
It's booming.
yeah. What advice would you offer right now to those that are watching, to people that are contemplating on purchasing, or they may not know, or they're thinking maybe next year, but they don't know where they are? What advice would you share to the
My
crowd?
advice is simple. It's feel the fear and do it anyway. And I always laugh with investors because I'll tell them, listen, the worst possible thing that can happen is you get the property. And it's not the worst, right? I say that just joking with them. And then they go, oh, okay, so we may or may not get the property. Yeah. And then they get the property. And then they're like, a year later, they're like, Roy, that was the best possible thing that happened, man. That property was excellent and it's still going excellent for us, right? And if the property doesn't work out right away exactly the way you thought it might, you know, as long as the numbers work out, just hang on to it for a while. It's going to make you money, surprisingly. And truly, we can't predict exactly what's going to be in the future. So, there's some people that are worried that prices might come down. And I remember in 2008, I was one of those too. And the way you satisfy yourself about that is you make sure that you buy something that provides you cash flow. And today that might mean that you have to buy maybe a duplex because you need twice the income to cover the costs, right? Or a triplex or something like that. So you truly have to work out the numbers. But if you have cash flow, you can really survive pretty much anything and hold on to that property and then sell it when the timing is right for you, or just keep it forever and build generational wealth. And honestly, we never know when we're going to need money. Like, some other people will say, well, I make enough money in my job and, I just don't need to make any extra money. Well, the reality is that money is good for the good you can do with the money, and you don't know what you'll need the money for. And I'll give you an example that I've just put forward for my niece. So my niece right now has 2 children. She's a single mom at the moment. And where she's living, she's kind of stuck in an 8x8 room and shared other facilities, and it's not ideal for her and the kids. Well, because I have these properties and they're self-sufficient, I'm able to offer her the opportunity to move into one of my properties at a rent that's affordable for her so that she can have a better living expense for her 2 children and herself. And is that, I do that for them and for me because I want them to have a better growing up experience.
Yep.
And for me, it makes me feel great because I have that ability, because I can do good with the money, right, to help them.
Roy, thank you immensely for sharing. I think, we've got a long history together. And one of the things that, sometimes I know I'm the kind of person I jump on with both feet. Okay, let's get going. And we're going to help. There's no fear there. And as you're doing it and you get things started, I'm really good at that because, and as you get it started, other people can kind of come in and then get going. I don't really look at, I love all people. So none of this control, I don't care where they come from, but just people are people. I'm not going to control or anything of that sort. But you want to, just as you say, do good for the good that it can do. And I love money as long as you're going to do good with it. And,
I find when you put good things out there, it's just my belief in the universe again, to call it the faith. When I do good things happen for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be able to be in that position and do that for your niece and just how that feels. So you're so correct. We'll never make enough money in our lifetime. So it's good to invest. Yeah. So that being said, I'm absolutely going to have you back soon, but I just want to thank you for being here and thank everybody for watching. Roy Cleeves, the Accidental Real Estate Millionaire, soon coming. And if anybody has any questions, anybody wants to learn, all you need to do is go onto your little web. I don't care if you have a cell phone, whatever, Facebook, social media, just type in CC Realty and we show up.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. It's been a great time.
Awesome. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.